Welcome to today's explainer. We're diving into one of the absolute most captivating, yet totally misunderstood creatures in the aquarium hobby. Yeah, we're talking about freshwater pufferfish. They're often affectionately and honestly pretty accurately called murder beans by the people who keep them. And look, while they are incredibly rewarding, they are absolutely unforgiving of mistakes. So if you've ever even toyed with the idea of bringing one of these unique fish into your home, consider this your ultimate survival guide. We're going to break down the exact science, the setup, and the sourcing you need to actually keep these incredible animals thriving. But hey, before we get completely caught up in how adorable they look, I need to shatter the biggest myth in the puffer keeping world right out of the gate. Puffing up, it isn't cute. It's actually a severe stress response. Seriously, if you see a puffer inflating in a home tank, it's not performing some fun little party trick, and it definitely doesn't mean it's happy. It is in profound distress. A truly healthy puffer in a well-managed, stable tank will almost never inflate. So if we want to keep these animals, we absolutely have to prioritize their actual biology over viral internet myths. Here's a quick look at our roadmap for today's explainer. Meet the puffer, the right species, tank setup, the carnivore diet, and finally, fatal mistakes. Okay, let's jump right into section 1, meet the puffer. Now, when most people hear the word pufferfish, they immediately picture, a salty ocean reef or maybe a brackish estuary. But actually, dozens of these species live entirely in freshwater rivers and lakes. Zero marine salt required. They just need standard freshwater chemistry to survive, generally preferring a pH sitting somewhere between 7.0 and 8.0. So why are aquarium hobbyists so intensely hooked on these specific fish? Honestly, it comes down to their massive brains. Freshwater puffers are highly intelligent. They have these uniquely interactive, almost dog-like personalities. Like, they'll actively recognize you as their keeper, they will enthusiastically beg for food right at the glass, and they'll even track your fingers as you walk by the tank. It's an incredible level of interaction that's just exceptionally rare for aquarium fish. But a quick heads up, they are so food motivated and their teeth are so sharp that you really need to use feeding tongs. Seriously, never offer food with your bare fingers. Moving on to section 2, the right species. Let me just say, I cannot stress this enough. Choosing the wrong fish is the single most common mistake beginners make. And sadly, it always leads to severe suffering for the animal. You've got to match the specific species to your specific setup right from day one. To show you just how wildly these fish vary, let's contrast two total extremes. On one end, you've got the incredibly popular pea puffer. This little guy maxes out at just 1 inch long, thrives in a 5-gallon tank, and is a fantastic entry point for a dedicated beginner. But compare that to the Fahaka puffer. Wow, this is a massive, highly intelligent, and fiercely aggressive predator that grows up to 18 inches long. The Fahaka requires a minimum of 100 gallons and is strictly solitary. Even 2 Fahakas in the same tank will literally fight to the death. And this brilliantly illustrates how this jump in requirements dictates basically everything. You have the tiny pea puffer with its medium aggression, and then stepping up to the South American puffer, which requires around 20 gallons. Now, interestingly enough, the South American puffer is one of the very few species that's actually community-friendly and thrives in groups. But contrast that again with the Fahaka, which has just a massive aggression level and zero tolerance for any tank mates whatsoever. All right, section 3, tank setup. Because these fish are such intelligent, highly observant predators, sticking them in an empty, bare tank is going to cause rapid psychological stress. They desperately need an environment that mimics a complex river system so they can hunt, explore, and just be themselves. But before we start decorating, let's talk chemistry real quick. Your temperature should sit at a tropical 75 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit with moderate water hardness to support their dietary needs. But here is the absolutely critical part. Ammonia must be strictly at 0 ppm. Why? Because unlike most aquarium fish, puffers completely lack a protective slime coat. They essentially just have bare skin. This means poor water quality and specifically ammonia will burn and harm them so much faster than other species. Pristine water is an absolute, non-negotiable must. And to maintain that pristine water, you are going to need some serious hardware. Your filter should be rated for 2 to 3 times your actual tank volume. Why? Well, because puffers are incredibly messy eaters that generate a massive bioload. For the interior of the tank, dense planting is essential. Think tough plants like Java fern or Anubias to really break up their line of sight. When you combine those dense plants with driftwood and smooth caves, you're giving them established territories. And that drastically reduces their natural aggression and those anxious pacing behaviors. Which brings us to section 4, the carnivore diet, or as I like to call it, feeding the beast. This is definitely the messiest part of puffer care. These guys are obligate carnivores, completely equipped with powerful, constantly growing teeth. They do not want your algae waivers, and standard flake food is absolutely useless to them. They are literally evolutionarily designed to crush the hard shells of their prey. So your puffer's menu needs to be highly specialized. We're talking live pond snails daily, supplemented with protein-dense frozen bloodworms maybe 3 to 4 times a week. And if you've got a larger species, frozen clams still in the shell are absolutely fantastic. But listen, I need to explicitly warn you against freeze-dried foods like freeze-dried krill. Those expand rapidly in the puffer's stomach and will cause severe, often life-threatening constipation. Stick strictly to live and frozen. And here is the most crucial point of all. Tooth overgrowth is a silent killer. A puffer's teeth literally never stop growing. If you're only feeding them soft foods like bloodworms, their teeth will eventually grow so long that they fuse shut. And when that happens, the fish can no longer open its mouth to eat, and it will slowly starve to death. Hard-shelled prey is not a fun little treat. It is mandatory daily dental maintenance. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, buying live snails every single day sounds super expensive. But honestly, for under $20, you can solve this problem forever. Just set up a really basic 5-gallon bladder snail breeding colony. Bladder snails reproduce incredibly fast with almost zero effort on your part, and that gives you an endless, totally free supply of the exact hard-shelled, crunchy food your puffer needs for optimal dental health. All right, section 5, fatal mistakes. Most puffer-keeping failures usually trace back to a short, highly predictable list of totally avoidable errors. So let's slow down for a second and make sure you really absorb these life-saving rules so your puffer actually thrives rather than just barely survives. Here is the chronological disaster path that catches so many beginners. It almost always starts with undersizing the tank, like cramming a growing fajaka into a 55-gallon tank, which just creates chronic stress and aggression. Then comes ignoring the dental maintenance, which, as we just learned, directly leads to starvation. This is usually followed up by adding incompatible tank mates that just get mercilessly nipped to shreds within hours. And finally, the ultimate mistake, skipping quarantine entirely. Let's actually expand on that last point for a second because it is so incredibly vital. Quarantine is completely non-negotiable. Since freshwater puffers are so often wild-caught, they frequently arrive carrying severe internal parasites, particularly things like intestinal flukes and flagellates. You absolutely must isolate any new puffer in a separate tank for 4 to 6 weeks. During this time, prophylactic deworming is essential before you even think about moving them into your pristine main display tank. So all of this brings us to our final question for you. Are you ready to commit to the murder bean? I mean, they demand heavy filtration, meticulous water chemistry, dedicated snail breeding just for their teeth, and for most species, absolutely zero tank mates. It is a demanding, totally unapologetic level of care. But if you can meet these standards, you are going to be rewarded with one of the most interactive, intelligent, and deeply fascinating aquatic pets on the planet. If you're ready to take the plunge, head over to the TankZen blog to read their complete, definitive care guides on every single species we discussed today. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and happy keeping!